Hi, I'm John Cash, and welcome to John Cash Ministries and Revelations Church's Daily Devotion. This devotion is being done in the midst of the storm of the century on the East Coast. And today's devotion is Finding God in the Middle and After the Storm. Now, I want to set this up. We're going to be looking at Acts chapter 28, verses 1 through 6. In Acts chapter 27, we find the Apostle Paul on a ship. And the ship, which is crossing the Mediterranean Sea heading toward Rome, is struck by a storm. And we understand that the ship is stuck in the storm for 2 weeks. That's unheard of. A storm at sea for 2 weeks. That's just crazy. It doesn't happen. But it happened. This storm was a big storm, and it was a storm where they thought basically they were going to die. Now, in the middle of that storm, we find Paul. We find his witness. And we eventually, after 14 days, find Paul on dry land with these people, and he is winding up on the island of Malta. And this is where we pick up. And this is very important to understand about storms. Once safely on shore, we found out that the island was called Malta. Now, he's safely on shore, and God told him that not a single sailor was going to die. They thought they were all going to die, but none of them did. That storm helped the sailors understand that God is God, that Paul's God was the real deal, and that Paul was different. So they're on shore safely after going through a 2-week disaster. Verse 2, the islanders showed us unusual kindness. They built a fire and welcomed us because it was raining and cold. You can imagine Paul going, shoo. He's tired. They didn't sleep for those 2 weeks. He's tired, cold, and wet. And in verse 3, the Bible says, Paul gathered a pile of brushwood, and as he put it on the fire, a viper, driven by the heat, fastened itself on his hand. You know when it rains, it pours. 2 weeks at sea, thinking he was going to be dead. They were blaming him. Now listen to this. He gets onto the island. First thing that happens, okay, get some wood, put on the fire, I'm going to warm up. Boom! And a poisonous snake attaches itself. I can just imagine he's just holding it up, looking at it. I hate snakes. Most of you do too, I know. So what in the world is happening? Yeah, when it rains, it pours. Storm after storm. You may ask, where is God? Where is God in all of this? 2 weeks at sea. Poisonous snake bites him. Understand something. God's up to something special. God uses the storms to bring glory to himself to hearts that are humble enough to see. Now watch this. When the islanders saw the snake hanging from his hand, they said to each other, this man must be a murderer, for though he escaped from the sea, justice has not allowed him to live. They were very superstitious people. Verse 5, but Paul shook the snake off into the fire and suffered no ill effects. You know God allowed that snake to fasten itself to his hand. You know God allowed that storm to rage for 2 weeks. You know God is allowing the storm to hit the East Coast. Why? Now we examined in the past to build our faith, strengthen our faith. But let me get a little deeper than that. Verse 6, the people expected him to swell up and suddenly fall dead, but after waiting a long time and seeing nothing unusual happen, they changed their minds and they said he was a god. Now, of course, Paul quickly corrected them. He quickly corrected them, said he's no god. And he winds up healing all of the sick on the island. Paul wasn't heading to the island, but God wanted Paul on the island. Paul was heading to Rome. God had different plans. You may have some plans of your own, but God says, no, my plans are over there for you. Folks, understand, God will use storms to bring glory to himself. God wanted a Christian witness on that island, and he used Paul to do it. These people were healed. I don't think they forgot about that. The men who were on that ship for 14 days, they learned about Paul's God. So understand, God will use storms to bring about miracles in people's lives, to bring people into the kingdom. Yesterday at Revelations Church, a young man who was receiving my Facebook posts about the storm decided to come to church. He gave his heart to Jesus, became a Christian. Because of the Facebook posts that I was doing, because of the storm. God used the storm to save his soul. So understand, God is at work when the storm is raging. Open your eyes and your hearts to see that by humbling yourself before him. God bless you. Thank you for your support of John Cash Ministries and Revelations